So, as a man in the modern world, you're presented with this dialectic. On the one hand, you have people who want you to be emotional and open with your feelings and in tune and, willing to, admit when you're not feeling well, that sort of thing. And then, on the other hand, you're presented with stoicism, the idea that you need to be rational and to be in control of your emotions instead of them being in control over you, and that you should be rational and that you should be stoic. And this is the dialectic you're presented with. On the one hand, you have crazy town. You have I have to be super emotional and in tune with my feelings. What's that about, right? I think almost no guy likes that. They're like, what is this? Now, on the other hand, you have stoicism, which it's presented as an opposition, and it's presented as being the natural male position that you're stoic. And then these are the two things, and then as the dialectic works, dialectic pushes one way, the other way, and you end up in the middle. And that's the dialectic we're presented with. I think in the modern world, you have to be very careful of the dialectics that are presented in popular culture, because it is often not one side or the other which is bad. It is often the dialectic itself which is poisoned. So, what I would like to say is, obviously, as a guy, you don't really want to be super emotional and in touch with your feelings, right? Because as a guy, you probably basically don't feel many feelings, and then you feel anger sometimes. And those are the two feelings. And then sometimes you have other feelings, but it's very rare. So this isn't a repression, right? You're not repressing anything. I certainly try to never repress my emotions, but that's basically my emotional spectrum. And that's just because I'm a guy, and that's how I've evolved to be, and I don't repress anything. It's just how it works, okay? On the other hand, you have stoicism. And stoicism does actually involve the repression of emotion. It involves trying to detach yourself from petty things and being above it all and being sort of order in the chaos of nature. Now, I don't think that's a healthy way to be as a guy, okay? So, why are we presented with this dialectic, right? It's very bizarre. On the one hand, you have something where obviously no, I'm not going to be emotional. I'm not going to talk about my feelings because I don't have them. Okay, right? It's not because I don't want to. I would if I did, but I often don't have them. On the other hand, I'm presented with this thing where the supposedly masculine thing to do is to just be above it all and be super neutral and just be this orderly priest. And that's a bit unnatural to me. I mean, obviously, it appeals to me more in comparison to the other spectrum, but still, I think it's completely wrong. So, let me introduce to you what I think is the actual real dialectic. I think the real dialectic is between Nietzsche and Marcus Aurelius. So, Marcus Aurelius was the emperor of Rome, and he wrote a big thing about how he lives his life, the temptations and all that, and how he lives a very orderly stoic life. And he was the big stoic guy. Even now, you read Marcus Aurelius' book to see how much of a stoic you are. On the other hand, you have Nietzsche, and Nietzsche believes that you should follow your emotions, and you should follow them. You should follow them up. You should follow them down, and you should be in tune with your body, the emotions you feel, and you should act on your emotions, and you should be in tune with your emotions, and you should be in service to your emotions. That's the sort of Nietzsche perspective. And I believe that this is actually the true dialectic in life. So in comparison to those people who want you to cry and talk about your feelings or whatever that's about, it seems as if the Stoics and the sort of Nietzscheans are on the same side, but they're really not on the same side. It's really actually a whole argument into itself, okay, that's much larger and more fundamental than the argument between the talk about your feelings people and the Stoics. And I sort of want to make the case for Nietzsche because I think he's right on this one, okay? And I think the Stoics are missing it, okay? And the reason the Stoics are missing it, I'll just make it, quick and simple for you. Marcus Aurelius was a loser, okay? Right? He writes this big book called The Temptations, and in this book, he's sort of, I find it to be it's hard to read, okay? Because it's kind of like you look at it and you think, wow, this was what's going through your head. It's kind of like I imagine myself when I read Marcus Aurelius's book. I imagine it like I'm trying to run the empire, okay, and I'm trying to keep it together, and he's just off writing this book, and I'm thinking, why is this guy making all these crazy decisions? And he's off here like sort of in this like masturbatory fantasy going, well, I live in tune with nature, and that's why, I make the decisions I do, everything, and I'm always calm. And it's like, okay, great, buddy, like you're calm. Okay, cool. Why did you split the empire in half? Why did you do that? Why, like, we can't move our forces. There's going to be a civil war, okay? And Marcus Aurelius is like, well, my brother that I grew up with, I loved him so much, and I thought it was not fair that I was an emperor and he was not an emperor, and so I gave him half the empire. Marcus, the barbarians are on the gates. They're invading. Come on, please, like, we need to get legions. Look, the tides come and the tides go, but I'm always calm. Okay? And fun fact, guys, after Marcus Aurelius, Rome was never as powerful again. Rome literally peaked under him. So you take something which had a trajectory, which was going up, 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 up. This huge Roman Empire was expanding. It was the best empire in the world, made by men who were not Stoics, okay? Then the Stoic gets in charge. He's just here meditating while he's dividing the empire in two, which causes major problems later on. And then the empire just, whoop, it goes down, and it never recovers. And that's what a Stoic did to the Roman Empire. So, yeah, this whole thing about you should either be you should be crying all the time, or you should be a Stoic. Totally false dichotomy, totally false dialectic. The real dialectic is, do you want to be in touch with your emotions, or as a man, or do you want to be just ignore them and trying to control them? And let's just pick this apart as to why Marcus Aurelius destroyed the Roman Empire, and let's not into the specific details, but let's go into his Stoic philosophy. So the way the Stoics sort of see it is that you shouldn't be taken in by all this crazy stuff going in the world. You should always be calm, and you should be rational. Okay, and this term rational, to make reasoned arguments. Now this term rational is really the core problem. And I honestly, the conspiracy part of me thinks, why do people push this idea that you should either be a Stoic or you should be a, like, kind of crazy person? Why is this a dialectic? The dialectic should be, this is not the dialectic that most men really struggle with and that really would lead to deeper understanding. And the reason it makes you weak is this. Your emotions have evolved over billions of years to guide you. They guide all of your rational thoughts. The reason that you seek out food and that you have come up with all of these tools, all of these tractors, all the math and science involved, it's all because you were hungry, okay? Maybe all the stuff with wars. Why did we invent artillery? Why did we invent all this stuff? It's because you were angry. Maybe you were ambitious. Maybe you felt like lonely. That's why you invent, all the human inventions come from these feelings and emotions. And these emotions, billions of years of evolution, everybody who had bad emotions died. And so the people who are left are with those emotions, for the most part, that guide them to be the best person that they can be. And so for most people, unless they have some issues, for most people, their emotions should guide them the vast majority of the time into doing the right thing, because that's what they're designed to do, okay? So if the empire is falling apart, if the barbarians are invading, and you're sitting here like Marcus Aurelius, like I'll just divide the empire in two, I have to be calm, like, what is that? No, like, you should be upset that the empire is falling in two, that there's this court problems. You should be in it. You should be into it, because when you are, you're going to have, obviously, if you're really excited, then the way it works is you're going to feel very sad. But that's good. That's good. You should take life by the reins, and you should go be emperor. You shouldn't be off here writing this book about how enlightened you are while the empire peaks under your reign, which I think is a huge insult, because after him, it's all downhill. Because you know what? His son was a terrible emperor. So he's off writing this book, and he's not raising his son correctly, because he's probably there like, oh, Timmy, like, he's doing this, he's doing that. It's okay, this is the tides of life. I'll just be above it all, I'll be calm. No, You shouldn't be a stoic. You shouldn't be like that. You should be upset when little Timmy is being horrible and is going to be a terrible emperor. It should upset you. You should be excited when the emperor, conquers a new province, okay? Because this is your empire, okay? You should live life to its fullest with emotion. And that's what Nietzsche talks about. And let's dissect in particular this problem of rationalism, okay? So I'll take the example of McDonald's. You can come up with 1,000 rational arguments as to why McDonald's is a good company. While they give to the Ronald McDonald charity, I think they did something for an ice rink, they donate to homeless shelters, they tried to do something for climate change, it's good, they treat their employees really well, blah, 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 right? These are all the reasons McDonald's is good. And you can sort of rationally say, like, and empirically and deductively, and you can go, hey, because McDonald's does this, and this has a good effect on the world, therefore McDonald's is a good company, You can sort of make these logical chains. But, of course, you might be thinking, there's a huge flaw in this sort of rational reasoning. And that rational reasoning, the flaw is that McDonald's obviously pays PR companies, advertising companies, and marketing companies to enter into my brain all of this information that I just regurgitated to you. The only reason I know what Ronald McDonald is because they have just inserted it into my brain through audio, through visual advertising, through billboards, through movies. And now I have a lot of rational argumentation as to why they're a good company. And to find rational argumentation as to why they're a bad company, well, it doesn't really exist, because there doesn't exist a company which has a strong interest to ruin McDonald's reputation. Maybe there does some, I don't know, but clearly they don't have as much money or power as McDonald's does on the positive side, okay? So this is very flawed, right? If you only use rational arguments in your life, you are essentially a slave to the rich and powerful who have presented to you these rational arguments in the first place. This is why rich people get out of jail, because they have lawyers who can find rational arguments. Poor people don't have these lawyers who can find rational arguments. And so the whole idea of rationalism falls apart, right? Because it's just a matter of how much money you have to produce rational arguments and to distribute it to the masses. Really, if you are to be independent, if you are to be your own actor, if you're to have your own agency, and if you're to be successful, your emotions are your primary source of what you should base your decisions off of. If someone comes in and they say, hey, you have to give me half your company, you have to do this, you have to do that, and they list out 10 rational whatever, and it sort of makes sense to you, they're valid rational reasons, but emotionally you feel like, hey, I don't want to do that. Well, then your emotions should carry the day. Now, obviously, your emotions are not crazy town emotions. You shouldn't be crying. You shouldn't, if someone slights you in a very small way, obviously you shouldn't just get super mad and start swearing at them. But I would hope for most people that their emotions wouldn't require that. Personally for me, if someone slights me a little bit, it's not that I'm sitting there going, I'm so stoic, I don't feel it. It's that I literally don't feel it. It's literally not an emotion I feel. But if someone does, that person who comes in, he asks for half, he gives me all these logical reasons, and I feel like I don't like that, well, then I'll say no, because my emotions told me no. And sure, I can have a rational justification for why. Humans have rational justifications for everything, but fundamentally it was that emotion. It was following my emotions that gave me that decision. It was not following rational argumentation. So this whole idea that you either have to be this crazy person or a stoic is entirely wrong. I think that the Stoics are wrong as well. I think you should either be living your full life through your emotions. Your emotions are guiding you, and your rational ideas are helping and combining and making something strong together with your emotions, producing your rational thought, and then combining that to make reality. Or you could be a Stoic and you could just ignore it all, or you could be a crazy person. Those to me are more on the same side. I think the person who wants you to express all of your emotions, and start crying all the time, and the Stoic who wants you to just repress them all the time, I think these two people are actually on one side of the dialectic. I think they're on the same side, because they both want you to do things that are unnatural. It's not natural to just be crying all the time as a guy. And it's also not natural to be repressing your emotions and just ignoring your empire while it falls apart. What is natural is to get mad when you're mad, be sad when you're sad, and be happy when you're happy, and to not constantly try and second guess yourself as to what you're doing. And there's this quote that I really like, which is self introspection is torture. Okay, and that's just very true. You know, if you're always in your mind like, why did I do this, why did I do that, it's very torturous. It's not a very fun activity. And I think at a certain point, you know, at least for me, you have to trust your own instincts, your own evolutionary emotions to guide you to success, because it worked for all your ancestors. It should work for you as well. And if it doesn't, you know, that's unfortunate, but you can't do anything about it. And I think you should just have some faith that you have some good genes, okay, that are not going to make you crazy, okay, if you just get mad when you're mad and sad when you're sad and happy when you're happy. I don't think you have to overexpress them or underexpress them. I think that's a manipulation of the natural state of things. And I think that Nietzsche has it right, that you should live yourself. You shouldn't be a stoic, and you shouldn't be crying all the time, right? So that's the real dialectic that exists. And I don't like this idea that if you're a man, you have to be stoic. It's like, no, if I'm a man, I should feel the emotions of a man. That's the real, I think, proper way to view things. And I hope that sort of deconstructed for you. I think this very poisonous dialectic that's like just always, whenever I hear it, I'm just like, I don't really agree with either side here. You know what I mean? I'm not picking a side in this debate. Even though you want me to pick the stoic side, I'm not picking the stoic side. I don't like any of this. I think that you should live as you are, a healthy, strong man. All right, that's it.